Hi, everybody. It's Liz Gilbert here. Hello, hello, hello. Tonight we're going to be talking about one of the most inspiring and beautiful and extraordinary books I have ever read. Given the books that we have read in the Onward Book Club thus far in the last 5 years, that is saying a lot. This one is called Briefly, Perfectly Human by Alua Arthur. We are going to be talking about death. We're going to be talking about death, folks. Whatever your feelings are about it, death that is, stick around. Okay, I have to ask Alua Arthur to join. There it is. Invited. She is invited. Let's see if this works. Hi, everyone. You have all my books in Macedonian. That's so wonderful. Hello, Brazil. And Alua, if you could also send me a request to join. Let's see if we can make this thing work. Obsessed with this book. I also am, my friends. Hi, everybody. Here's the book. Briefly, Perfectly Human, Alua Arthur. Making an Authentic Life by Getting Real About the End. Okay. All right, Alua, I just said yes to your request. Yes, and Alua is married just recently. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Wow, unable to join. I have never seen anything like this. Wait a second, I have a question. You're all smart people, and there are almost 300 of you on your call. Do you know any reason from your experience with Instagram that she would be unable to join this call? Because we've tried in multiple ways, and it has not worked. Anybody have any experience with that in Instagram Lives? I just thought I would crowdsource this problem. Let's see. Let me try again. It's so weird. Ah! Oh my God. I feel like they tried to keep us apart. And they
did.
And they just failed. They couldn't
And
keep us apart.
what? We won't let them. We won. Wow. Thank
Here we
God.
are. There you are. Look, everybody's sending guidance and advice. Before
Thank
we turn off
you.
the comments, I just want to say, community, thank you. Thank you so much for, it was actually, I think it was the collective will of the
I think
community and everybody wanting this to happen that made it
absolutely.
happen. Before I turn off the comments so that we can all focus, could everybody just send up enormous bursts and clouds of hearts for Alua Arthur, who is incredible. She is the author of this extraordinary book, Briefly, Perfectly Human. She is a death doula. We're going to be talking about death. And whatever your feelings about it, if you're afraid of it, if you're not afraid of it, stay on. And everyone's congratulating you on your marriage. They already know what's going on there. Okay, now I have to remember how to turn off commenting. Okay, it's off. But the hearts will continue. I
Thank
believe that
you.
the hearts will go on. Hi!
Hi.
All right, let's shake off the tension of trying to sign on for the last 10 minutes.
Got it. Over the sweat. And I put on lipstick for you, and I was like, she's
I put
got to
on
see this
lipstick for
lipstick. Look
you.
at this. I was so concerned you wouldn't see it, but here we are.
Here we are. Oh my God, it is such a delight to meet you. I'm going to start off the way that we always start off here at the Onward Book Club. We start off by celebrating you with an introduction that my beloved friend Margaret, who works on this project with me, and I create, that is all about letting everybody know how amazing you are. So once again, we're going to be talking about death tonight, everybody. We're going to be talking about Briefly, Perfectly Human. We're actually going to be talking about life as well, almost more than any other book that I have ever seen. We're going to be talking about life. But here we go. Here is your introduction and our love note to you. Alua Arthur is a force of nature all around. A recovering lawyer is how she defines herself, who realized through a series of small miracles that she was not suited for the law despite having practiced for nearly a decade. at the top of the game, and that her calling in life was in fact death work. She's a death doula in the Los Angeles area, the founder of Going with Grace, a global death doula training program that has taught thousands of people how to provide end-of-life services to the dying and their loved ones. Her primary mission, though, is to remind us of our mortality, and in so doing, to remind us to live more authentically, more joyfully, and with less fear. She is probably more responsible than anyone else in America for getting us comfortable with one of the last taboo subjects in our culture, our own deaths. Alua is also a professor, a Time 100 health honoree, and has given a TED Talk called Why Thinking About Death Helps You Live a Better Life, which has been viewed millions of times. And she is now a New York Times bestselling author thanks to her gorgeous, sumptuous, delicious book, which is extraordinary. It's part memoir, part instruction manual for dying, and the biggest part of it, an instruction manual for living. It is sharp, beautifully written, deeply funny, and lively like the woman herself. Nothing short of an immense public service, and I am thrilled that it brings the one and the only Alua Arthur to the Onward Book Club. We welcome you and we honor you.
Thank you so much. I come in such gratitude. Thank you so much for having me and for that very, very generous introduction.
Oh my gosh, this book, I don't know what I was expecting, but I'll tell you what I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting in reading a book about death, and I've read a lot of books about death and a lot of books about grief, and they tend to, God bless them, they tend to take a very somber, very serious, very like hand on your shoulder kind of earnest tone that I found when I was grieving the death of the love of my life to not be helpful, and actually to be a little bit off-putting, and it just drove me away from those books. Even though I knew that there was probably treasures in those books for me, um, the tone and the earnestness and the weight made me feel worse somehow about this tremendous loss that I had just gone through with the love of my life. Your book, on the other hand, starts with the most vivid, extraordinary scenes of you traveling through Cuba, backpacking your way as a traveler, having this extraordinary encounter on a bus. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that encounter, and about the young woman that you met on the bus that day, and also why you were in Cuba and why you were a traveler and what this has to do with death.
Sure. Sure. Because it is kind of random, isn't it? But kind of like how life is. So I was in Cuba after having spent almost a decade working in legal aid in Los Angeles, where I got desperately burnt out, almost crispy, and I grew deeply depressed. My therapist and my psychiatrist thought that it was best if I take a medical leave of absence. So I did. And through a series of serendipities, I ended up in Cuba late for a bus where I eventually got on the bus and met this fellow traveler named Jessica. Jessica and I were just a couple years different in age, but she had uterine cancer and she was traveling to see the top 6 places she wanted to see in the world before she died. And it was stunning to me. I mean, it's wild to say in retrospect how shocked I was that somebody about my age was grappling with a serious illness. Of course, I understood that happened intellectually, but this was the first time in practice it was happening. And it really just caught me off guard. And I asked her the questions that I don't know that I would have asked if I had stopped to think about all the societal mores around how we talk about illness and bodies. And so, but I asked her straight up if this disease was going to kill her and what it meant for her life and what she wanted to do with her life that she hadn't done. And gratefully, she came along with me. She answered all the questions open-heartedly, gave so much more information, but probably in the way that you can when you're in a foreign country, with a stranger, you can just be completely open and be vulnerable with them. And she did. And it opened up a beautiful pathway, not only between us, but a pathway for me back into my own life. Because I asked Jessica if this disease was the end of her life, what was undone? What did she still want to do with her life? What more was there? And I asked myself the same questions. And in doing so, realized that the life that I'd been living was not it for me. So many things had gone amazingly right according to, general ideas about success and how one should be in the world. But it wasn't a life that felt good for me. And thinking about my death, thinking about my deathbed self, thinking about Jessica's death was precisely the sweet, tough little kick in the butt cheeks that I needed to get me out of that life and into one that actually feels like me now.
Wow, what an incredible answer. Also, I'm so sorry, your video quality is a little bit poor, and you're coming in pixelated. And I'm wondering if you can get closer to your Wi-Fi, if that's possible, or maybe turn off other devices in your house that might be eating Wi-Fi power. Um, I'm just trying to figure out how we can see you more clearly because I know we can hear you, but we can't see you. And I'm seeing some hearts go up saying people are having that experience, and I don't want to miss your face.
I'm because I'm sitting right by the router.
So odd.
And it's also weird today. The technology is just so fascinating. What a beautiful tool, and also how challenging sometimes.
How extremely challenging. Maybe
Yeah.
Mercury is in Gatorade or something. I don't know.
In
Um,
microbraids. Yeah.
well, if that's what it is, I say we continue because I'm captivated by everything that you're saying, and I don't want to stop. So let's just keep going,
Good.
um, and maybe the technology gods will smile upon us. Um, so yeah, that's what blew my mind about your book was that your book did not start with a discussion of death. It didn't start with a scene from your work as a death doula. It didn't start with statistics about death. It started with a vivid, lively story about you meeting a vivid, lively person who was facing possibly a death sentence and how that changed you and transformed you. Um, I also wanted to say that you coming from a West African immigrant family, there was so much that had been expected of you, such high expectations put upon you for achievement. Basically, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an engineer, or forget it. Like
Or
those are
don't
the
bother.
there's no that's it. And like you, I also chose a life path in my 20s that would have been very pleasing to my parents. And like you, it almost killed me. And like many people, I think that it can be deadly to be too pleasing to the people who raised us and even to the people who we may love.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was really moved by in your book was there was a scene that really devastated me where you were working with somebody who right to the end of their life was people pleasing their way right into the grave, which I would imagine that you see a lot of, that even in these last days of existence, there's a tendency to still try to be pleasing to the people around you rather than having the voice to say what you actually want.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart reading that. I saw that happen a little bit in my partner Rhea, when she was dying in her navigations with her family. And I remember at the time thinking, my God, if you can't say what you really want now, a month before you die, when can you say that? And I wonder if you could reflect on that, on what you've seen in that, in the people that you've worked with, and how it's transformed the way you think about making choices for your own life.
It's a really powerful way that you put it. It's because at that point, at the time of death or getting close to the time of death, is really all the time that you have left. And my hope for all of us is that, well, certainly as we journey through life, we can put down the masks that we wear in order to make ourselves, well, we think make ourselves more likable or more fun to get along with, or just all the masks that we wear, and that we finally put them down near the end. Because I constantly think about the fact that on our deathbed, dying is a one-on-one experience. Despite what people believe otherwise about who's coming or who's not there or who's going to take you along the way or not, it is me meeting every decision I've ever made in my life at my deathbed. It's me on me, for every choice I made, every choice I did, and every word I spoke, every place I went, every place I decided not to go, who I loved, how I showed up in my body. all of those choices I'm going to face. And I see so many people that still want to hold back some portion of who they are in order to fit somehow. And at times it breaks my heart, but also there are forces that are pushing them toward that are far greater than anything I can understand also, which consistently calls me back into great compassion. But my hope is that for all of us as we grow, which I think a bit of elderhood is some of that, like putting down all the things that we belong to other people and stripping down to who we actually are, that on our deathbed, all of it will be stripped. All that will remain is me and me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was watching my partner Rhea die, I remember thinking, there's a level at which what she's doing has absolutely nothing to do with anybody in this room. As much as we think that we are helping her, she's the way I kept thinking of it is like she's in a conversation right now with her own mortality. She's in a negotiation right now with a mystery, and this is hers. And I can't even begin to know what that might be like. Um, the humility that you bring to your work as a death doula is so moving to me. Actually, let me back up. And for people who don't know what a death doula is, let's get some terms defined and some of a sense of it, because I thought I knew what a death doula was until I read your book.
What do you
Um,
think?
I thought that you came in like the last couple days
Okay.
of somebody dying, sort of like the way a birth doula comes in, which I probably don't even know what a birth doula is now I think about it. But like, I'm probably wrong about that too. But like the idea that I had in my head was somebody's been dying for like years or months or weeks, and then they call you in at the end and you bring like this calm and this spirituality to these last moments, and you hold space, and you're an expert in dying, and you tell everybody what's going on, and then you leave after they're dead, right? Like this is what I thought. And to my shock, there's so much that you do. First of all, like you often come in and work with people who aren't dying.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing to me. You often work with people who just are thinking about their mortality, and they're wondering what they should be thinking about. They're the kind of people who are deep thinkers, and they like to be prepared, and they want to talk to you about, like, I want to make a death plan for myself, as much as I possibly can, and you'll work with them on what that could mean. You come in months before somebody is dying to work with them on who do they want in the room as they're dying? What are the last things they want to do? How do they get their affairs in order? How do they line up care? How are they going to handle their finances, legal issues, the emotional issues? You worked with a family who this girl found out on her father's deathbed that she had 5 siblings she had never met because he had kids all over the world and they all wanted to be part of the death. And you handled a Zoom call between these siblings who had never met each other to try to figure out who has the right to be in the, I mean, like what you're actually juggling emotionally, spiritually, legally, and at the level of the pragmatism plus the soul is so complex. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, how do any of us get through the deaths of our loved ones without a death doula? I mean,
Yeah.
we needed you. I needed you when Rhea was dying. Like everyone I know needs you when this is going on, because there are so many things that you don't know how to do that you've never done before. And in my experience, the primary caregiver of the one who is dying also needs someone taking care of
Yeah.
them. So yeah, I had no idea. And one question I had was, are all death doulas as amazing as you, or do you just do all those things because you're also somebody who you defined very early on in the book as being such an empath and such a giver? Like, tell me more about this as an industry, as a profession.
Great.
And yeah, I just think this book blew my mind. I had no idea everything that was contained within this line of work.
And then when you heard about it or learned a little bit about it, you were like, well, duh, right? Like,
How did I, how
I
did any
don't
of
know.
us survive without this?
I'm just still waiting for somebody to come around the corner and be like, duh. Because it felt like as soon as it kind of crystallized for me, certainly after my brother-in-law died and I saw the real need, like first on that bus in Cuba, it'd been a very theoretical idea, you know, how to work with people, how to work with myself, how to use immortality as a lens through which we view our lives. But then when my brother-in-law Peter was dying, it just got a lot more clear. We needed somebody. We needed somebody right there and then. And I wish that you would have had a death doula. I wish that you all could have had that because I think it makes a big difference. I think it can soften what's an already really, really difficult situation. Um, I think one of the key components of death doulas, or there are many of them, but it's necessary that we build a bit of a personal relationship with dying ourselves. Like we start thinking about death, because if not, we tend to cloud the space between us and another human. You know, I teach death doulas, and one of the things that I really enjoy is that death doulas generally are folks that can take a bird's eye view of what's going on and can be willing to bet that their perception of the situation as they see it is a gamble and that
Mm.
theirs is not the sole one, which allows us to open up the space for there to be whatever needs to be there. You see what I mean? As opposed to having a very clear and fixed point of view or perspective. Because I mean, how can you take that perspective with death anyway? Like none of us actually know. Let's just be open to the mystery of it all. So it helps that these students are generally coming like open to the mystery. We do hold a lot. We hold a lot of the legal, emotional, logistical, practical, psycho-spiritual. And yet I constantly encourage the doulas I teach to find an area that feels really good to them, the place that people what people come to them for, and to focus on that because you know not everybody's gonna like a spreadsheet. I'm not a fan of a spreadsheet, and so I try to work with other doulas where there are elements that feel like they're not in a happy, joyful place for me, or where somebody's just gonna do a better job. But you know, I think as long as we approach this work with like removing, peeling back the layers of humanhood for ourselves
Mm.
first, peeling back our relationship with mortality, and allowing the human to just be human. It's an easy place to exist once we do that.
Oh God, that's so beautifully expressed. I was touching earlier about the humility, and I think you're speaking to that there as well. Like it's almost like a Buddhist thing. Can you come in with a don't know mind,
Yes.
rather than coming in as the expert, and trying to control a situation that is inherently mysterious. It doesn't matter how how many advances we've made as humans. We know nothing more about death than anybody else ever did. And one of the moments in the book that I found was so moving was that you came to work with a woman who was dying, and she just straight up looked you in the eye and asked you like 10 unanswerable questions in a row. She was like, what happens when we die? Where do we go when we die? Is it going to hurt when I die? How long will it take after I die before my consciousness leaves my body?
Yeah.
When am I going to die? How am I, and you just very calmly kept saying to her, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody can answer that. I don't know. Or putting the question back to her, what do you think happens when people die?
Yeah.
Which I thought was really beautiful and kind too. And at one point, she sort of becomes exasperated because she's obviously hired you, the death expert,
Right.
to come in and answer questions that humans have been grappling with for as long as we've had our humanness. She just wants to know, and you don't know. And she's like, well, then what? Then what are you here for, basically? And as I recall it in the book, you essentially said, I'm here to be with you.
Yeah.
And I was so moved by that because you're going to be doing a letter from love for us for this other project that I've got called Letters from Love. And this is a project where it's a spiritual practice I do where I write myself these letters from unconditional love, and I'm holding space in the Substack community to teach other people how to do it. And there have been times where I've asked the spirit of unconditional love really direct questions, beginning with why, how, when, and love has said to me, I don't know.
Mm.
When is this situation going to end? I don't know. What's going to go in here? I don't know. And I remember one point saying to love, the spirit of unconditional love, if you can't answer these questions for me, what good are you? And love said to me, I am with you in your darkest hour. I'm here to be with you in your darkest hour. And I realized when I read that section of the book, oh, that's what you're doing when you go in to sit with somebody as a death doula, is you're being with them as they walk to a mystery that you yourself don't understand.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you could speak about how you prepare yourself spiritually, physically, and emotionally to to for that tremendous task. Especially somebody who this is something I think is fascinating about you. You write in the book so much about your own restless energy, that you have ADHD, that you've never been able to live in one place for more than a few months, that you're like crawling out of your skin, traveling all over the world, and yet your life's work is sitting in stillness at the most epic, mysterious moment of somebody else's life in deep presence. How do you reconcile these aspects of yourself? And how do you prepare to do that? And what does it feel like for you to be that, to be love in the room?
It isn't it fascinating that we can hold these seeming contradictions in one body all the time? Because I find myself, I mean, sometimes when I experience myself, I'm like, girl, calm down, sit down, let's just be still for a little bit. You know what I mean? And yet, when I'm in the space of dying, I can feel every cell, it feels like, in my body. I feel super present. I'm there. I'm absolutely there. I think it's just one of those human mysteries, how I can hold the things. But there are some practices that I've had to learn along the way. Certainly practices my mom taught me when I was much younger to make sure that I didn't always lose my keys and my wallet and the basic things that I held on to desperately today. Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. But for now, I try to focus on recognizing them crossing a threshold before I go into somebody's home or even go visit them in a place where there may be multiple beds, multiple people. Before I leave the car, or just even before I cross the threshold overall, I constantly try to remind myself that the me who walks in will be changed by what it is that I experience there. And I will take what I can with me. I will take the lessons with me. And yet the changes that occur there are for that, they're not mine. You know, they are not mine. I am changed forever, and yet they're not mine to take. It also allows me to be able to separate a little bit of the grief that I experience after somebody dies from my own grief, so that I can understand how to work with both of them. This I think this grounding, this stilling before walking into some place really allows me to be present. You know, when we talk to the doulas, we constantly remind them that to doula is a being practice. It's not a doing practice. There's many things that can be done. There's a lot of tasks involved with the work, but the vast majority comes from who we be, and that requires us to try to clean off a lot of the sludge that accumulates, that gets out of the way of being, so that we can show up and just be with somebody in there wherever they are at that time.
God, it's such an incredible gift. And you're reminding me in the last days of my partner in his life, there were many things happening. There's a lot of chaos
Yeah.
going on because there were a lot of big personalities, which is often the case around death. As I write in my book about her death, I wish I could say that we were all like spiritual and kind and generous with each other, but I can only say that sometimes we were,
Fair.
and sometimes we weren't, and that includes me, you know. It was, as her sister said after she died, we were all drowning, Liz, and none of us knew what to do. But there were also these periods where sometimes I was alone with her, and she was at that point. This is before she dropped into the last, couple days where she was sort of gone from consciousness as far as I could see. But she would just be sleeping for hours and hours and hours. And I don't think I've ever sat in deeper, more sacred silence. Like just sitting. And I remember somebody coming over, an old friend of hers coming over and getting really agitated and saying, "What are you guys doing?" Because there's a couple loved ones and we were just sitting. And we said, "We're just sitting here." And she's like, "Ugh, I'm not just going to sit here and wait for somebody to die. I can't bear that, and had to leave the room. And I remember thinking, how could you want to be anywhere else on the entire planet but in this portal that feels like it's opening? And yeah, there's something so holy that's happening right here. I don't know. It was one of the most awful and one of the most beautiful things I've ever been in.
What a beautiful duality. all the time.
There's the humanhood again, as you described.
There it goes again. Lucky us. Lucky us. I understand that maybe agitation that people experience when they're in the presence of it. It's huge, it's so big, this thing that's about to happen. And yet it takes a while to get there for many when they're dying from disease. It doesn't look like it does in the movies, as all this, well, many of us know at this point, somebody's not alive and animated, and suddenly they stop breathing unless there has been an intervening medical event or so. And so when folks are dying from disease, it's quite a process. And to bear witness to the entire thing, it's hard for me not to be in deep reverence of the person who is doing it, of this like magic thing that is life anyway, but also of like the individual journey we all take to get there at some point. Because it's such a process. There's this stillness, like when, after life has left a body, the stillness is how I can't help but want to bow to it. Like, how is life animated by something intangible and then gone? And where does it go? And why? And what? But they don't have any answers. None of them have
No,
any answers.
no, we just have this experience that we don't even really know what this thing is. Like I don't even know if you and I are real or if I'm dreaming you. I have literally no idea how anything works.
So fun. So fun.
But I know, that there appears to be some kind of great magic that happens in life, and I'm wondering if you could read. There's this section that I feel like epitomizes. It's in the chapter called "Glimmer of Freedom," and it is so beautiful, and it's about the time that you spent when you were young looking for purpose. And you say, "I've come to believe my life does not have a singular purpose, that the search for purpose can be blinding." This is something I hammer on about all the time, about purpose anxiety and the purpose theology of capitalism that makes so many people so anxious and makes so many people feel like they're wasting their life because it's not in alignment with this idea that we're taught about a central purpose. But could you read, starting from on the bottom of page 157, and for those of you following along at home, we're reading from Briefly Perfectly Human, from the bottom of page 157 to the end of the chapter on the next page. It's such a gorgeous piece of writing.
Gladly. To the end of the chapter?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, now that I'm a death doula, I have work that brings the fullness to my life beyond anything I could have imagined. I'm grateful for it every day, but not nearly as grateful as I am for the mere opportunity to be briefly, perfectly human, to feel cold and grief, to experience awe and taste sugar on my tongue, to watch as light glints from a disco ball in the sun. This is important because while we are obsessed with trying to make meaning and purpose out of life, we can miss the experience of being here. We've got to find a good enough reason to give context to a life that can withstand waking up, working, eating, and pooping for roughly 80 something years. If it brings you joy, make meaning out of the mundane. It's important to follow your curiosities and bliss wherever you can find it. It could be anywhere. What if one of your purposes in life was to delight in the delicious syrup made with lavender and blackberries from your garden? Or to learn how to make macrame art finally? What if your joy in life is when Cisco belts out the key change and the thong song? Or you hear Juvenile call out, Cash Money Records taking over for the 99 and the 2000s just before the beat drops? What if what brings you purpose is reveling in the mysteries of life and the simplicities and perfection of nature? Would that be sufficient? Most of us know what tickles us. We can identify activities or parts thereof which bring us wonder and make us feel a flow and ease. And as we stumble upon new things, we know the undeniable instinct which says, lean into this, to a person, an idea, a place, or way we feel about ourselves. And yet, so many of us wait to take that step forward toward it, procrastinating our whole lives long. We wait until tomorrow, but no one is ever guaranteed a tomorrow. The consequences for waiting can be irreversible.
The consequences for waiting can be irreversible. The reason I love that section so much is because we're constantly often being lectured to live every day as if it is your last, which my friend Suleika Jawad, who's been in, a dance with cancer for so many years, hates and has spoken out about as like, it's not actually possible or sane to live every day as if it's your last, although she does suggest living every day as though it's your first.
Beautiful.
And looking at things like you've never seen them before, which I think is a really big, wonderful counter to that. But so many times there can be this fear-inducing lecture that you get around death, which is like, you can die at any time, so you better be living your purpose, which can just make people's guts clench in this icy fear of like, I don't know if I've done it. I don't know if I've done enough. I don't know if I've, like, ugh. And so for you to introduce this idea that like, what if your purpose is these tiny little joys, just recognizing how things taste, how music sounds, these small beauties of being alive. It feels like liberation to me, like true liberation.
I think it can be. It feels like it for me. I mean, because I certainly get caught up in, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And there's this business and there's this work. And then I can get so caught up in it. But every once in a while, I just have to stop and like pause and take it in. My partner is so good at it. Like one of his absolute favorite things is watching the shadow that the leaves make when the wind is blowing them. And he can just get entranced by them. Like, what a human. You know, how we can get so caught up on these tiny, tiny parts of what it means to like be alive. Because God knows there's enough suffering in this world. If we can balance it with like the joy and like the awe and the mystery and beauty that exists also, why the hell not? Well, also while we're chasing these big, big things in our lives, we forget. Like I notice all the time when people get closer to the end, they're not looking for more time for the Machu Picchu. They're not looking for more time to go do some grand big things or to have this like magical experience, a big one. They are thinking about more time with their families. They're thinking about watching the jade grow an extra branch. They're thinking about, the hummingbirds in their backyard. They're not thinking about taking big treks to, do these great things or dance till 4 a.m. anymore. I mean, that is a really good time. But most of us seem to approach the end just wanting the simplicity of life a little bit longer.
God, that's so beautiful. Um, why do you think people, I don't know enough to know whether it's specifically in modern Western capitalist culture or if it's global, that people are so deeply uncomfortable and unwilling to talk about death, even when it's not obviously imminent, to have any sorts of conversations about this. My beloved friend and one of the great mentors of my life, from Eat, Pray, Love, his name was Richard from Texas. He's a character in the book and in the movie, and he died very shortly after the book came out, actually, and knew he was dying. He had massive, incurable heart problems from mostly from having been a drug addict and alcoholic for most of his life, and as he said, using his body like a rental car. but,
Ah,
which I thought was a really great line. He was very philosophical about it. He was just like, "Yeah, that's what you get for using your body like a rental car." But I said to him a couple weeks before he died, I said, "Richard, what are your thoughts on death? Like, what do you?" Because he was very openly talking about knowing that he was dying, and he said he used to call me groceries. He said, all I know about death, groceries, is that it seems to take most people by surprise. And and he said, and I don't know why, because
yeah,
it's the only promised thing. And
yeah,
I had never heard that said before, that it's the only, he used to say it's the only item on the contract when you're born. Nothing else about life is promised.
yeah,
Except that it's the one thing that's promised, and it's the one thing that when it happens, we're all like, what? You're like,
yeah,
we're like shocked, like no matter, like just shocked. And it's like, no, this was the only thing that was guaranteed. And I wonder if you've seen a lot of the world as a traveler. You describe yourself as an outsider in a way. in this way, you also remind me of my partner Rhea, who always said she was too American to be Arab, too Arab to be American, too queer to be normal in her family, too Midwestern to fit in New York. Everywhere she went, she was sort of outside. But you also speak about the power of the outside eye, as a doula and as a traveler. So, what do you see, sort of regarding what everybody about why death is so shocking, um, and why people are so frightened to talk about it openly?
Yeah, I wish I had more information. I would love to sit and talk to folks everywhere. I'd love to travel just for the purpose of talking to people about what they think about death there. Hopefully that'll happen soon. And what I've come to see thus far is it really seems to be a result of modern mm, capitalist societies, where in order for us to feel as though in order for us to continue participating in the system, we must stave off that we are gonna die at some point. Like it depends on me fearing my end in order to stay consuming. Do I need to say more? Or you're clear.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, you
Good.
can say more. Do you have more to say?
I have so much to say. I could talk about this for forever. Like capitalism, thanks to one of my team members named Corey, is one of my favorite things to talk about now because I see how it interplays with our relationship with mortality so strongly. But yet also, I think that the human ego within capitalism has grown to a point where it feels like a failure of self to die. It feels like I have done something wrong if I get sick or I am weak or I'm dying. And thus we pretend it's not happening. We just want to shove it off in the corners, put it behind doors, don't talk about it. Certainly don't talk about your own. Definitely don't talk about your own. Don't talk about somebody else's, but just push it off and pretend nothing's happening. But I think it's all tied into also our ideas about pain and wanting to resist pain at all costs and tying pain up with suffering and just so many other societies and cultures I think have such a softening around what it means to be human, to not be completely indestructible, to be held by community, to not have all the answers myself and to be able to be with others and to allow myself to be one thread in the massive fabric as opposed to the entire fabric in one being.
Okay, so you just gave me the answer to the other question I wanted to talk to you
Oh,
about. I'm a little bit obsessed with the fact that the only people who I have ever seen who are completely obsessed, like completely obsessed, where it is their entire like point of living an entire existence with longevity, and also with it's coming to be like almost immortality, are really rich white men. It's I never have seen a woman like devote her life to the subject of longevity. I have never seen I've never personally seen a person of color like be like I'm just here to study how we can live forever. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
but and having grown up with a father who was a white man who was obsessed with money and longevity. These are his two twin obsessions. It's you've just answered, and with individuality and autonomy, like something about what you just said just made the penny drop for me, maybe literally the penny, about why are they so fixated on living forever? And the question that I always want to ask them is, you never talk about living, you only talk about living forever. Like, you never talk about why you want to live forever. You never talk about what you want to do or offer to the world. You just want to not, it's almost like you talk about the body wins. I love this line. I've never heard this before. We all know by now that the body keeps the score, but you say the body always wins. That in the end the body wins. And I feel like there's a certain kind of person who cannot bear that they do not have control and power when they hold so much control and power that they do not have control and power over the body.
Yeah.
Um, have you seen this also? Have you noticed this longevity thing that these white dude bro
Girl,
podcasters are just obsessed with?
girl. Yeah, I've seen it quite a bit. I've heard a bit from them also. I've heard a lot from them. But I think it just still ties in with that idea of the fragile human ego. It's
Yeah.
the same thing that I think led those people in particular to rape and pillage most of the planet. It's that same thing. It's the fear of death. It's the I must have everything for me. I must get stronger and bigger and better. And so I'm going to go out and get it from wherever I can get it from. And it doesn't matter who I trample along the way. That has also led us here. You know, the
Yeah.
fear of death is a powerful motivator, but it can motivate in ways that are not fantastic as well, like raping and pillaging most of the planet.
You list a bunch of activities and behaviors that you associate with fear of death. Anything it seems that's distracting, numbing. Um, you say, and I'm fascinated by this because I've never heard of this before. Which I think about addiction a lot. I'm in a 12-step recovery for addiction, and you mentioned addiction as addictive behaviors as being um, based in a fear of death, which is fascinating because those behaviors end up killing us.
Yeah.
But can you speak to, it was just a little, almost like a throwaway line, and I circled it because I was like, ooh, say more.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you think and what you see about that.
I think all those behaviors that take us away or outside of ourselves, and I don't mean in the immediate, and I don't mean in like in the analgesic for the moment, but rather in the longer term running away from self, running away from my idea of who I am or the fact that my death may come, but anything that makes me go put up the blinders, that anything that has me reject my pain, anything that has me maybe lie to myself about my suffering, any of those areas are rooted to me in a deep-seated fear of death. Fear of death looks like so many things. You know, it looks like also sometimes some virtuous behavior, like obsessive cleaning, or even some of the travel I think I was doing for a big portion of my life. I was running away from myself. I was running away from stagnation. I was running away from the fact that one day my life would end and I didn't like the life that I had. So pick up and go, girl. But you know, you get there and then shit, you're there still. So you still got to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Just thank you for that insight on there. There's a line on page 177 that's hidden in the middle of a paragraph, and it landed on me like like a bomb. You know, I was just like, oh, and I feel like this is so powerful, and I want to convey this to everybody, and I want to see if you could speak more about this. You said the death of someone does not require that we forgive them if it doesn't serve us. There seems to be a code that dictates that the dead are beyond reproach, right? Like, don't talk ill of the dead. Um, Let it go, they're dead. You know, like, but you remind us again and again that dying is actually very ordinary and commonplace. It's a thing that we all do, and it doesn't really make sense to canonize people
No.
after they are dead. And it reminds me of, they're still people. And it reminds me of a line in one of my favorite books, Hilary Mantel, who wrote the Wolf Hall series of books and won all those Booker Prizes. One of her earlier books was called Beyond Black. It's an incredible book. If you haven't read it, I think you would love it. It's about a woman who's a medium. It's a novel about a woman who's a medium, and it happens that she can hear the dead. And it
Ooh.
also happens that it's a perfectly ordinary thing for her to be able to hear the dead. And it also happens that she goes into a lot of explanation about how some of them are just like not good people, and their bereaved relatives often come to her wanting reconciliation. And she always and there's a line where she says to them, like, just because they died doesn't somehow turn them into a good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're actually, their spirits beyond the realm are actually just as disruptive as they were on Earth. Like, an idea I had never heard before. But I wonder if you could, and I know a lot of times people feel a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, which is why I want to bring this up, because so much of what you teach is about freedom. And I feel like this is a freedom lesson that you offer, that the death of somebody does not require that we forgive them. Can you say something about that to people who may be suffering with that?
Yeah. I mean, first, I totally jive with what you were saying earlier, because just because somebody dies doesn't mean that they get to be a saint because they die. Like everybody dies. It's the most normal thing to do. You know, you don't get special because you did it. Everybody does. And when people have complicated relationships while they're living, the death of somebody doesn't automatically mean that they are off scot-free now. It doesn't mean that whatever they did, you just have to put aside. I wish I could understand where we get that from that idea that because they died, now you must forgive or put it behind you. But that doesn't serve many people because it has not erased the thing that occurred that caused pain or wounded or traumatized. It doesn't mean that we have to forgive them because it happened, because they died. It's like, it's like we've decided somewhere along the way that whatever happened to me is erased. And that's not fair. That's not fair. Trauma changes people. Wounding, hurt, it changes people. Um, Relationships falling apart changes people. And that is not erased because the death occurs. What they did still exists even though they died. I would love it if we would let go of those notions. It's very like kumbaya deathy that says like, oh no, they're dead now, so you speak softly around them, you speak softly of them, and they were now a saint. What about the people that had a hard time when they were living? They get to speak their truth too. They had a different perspective of that person. I can't remember whose quote this is, but I saw it again recently about the fact that there's so many different versions of me that exist in people's memory. And for some, I was a total asshole. And when I died, they may cheer. They have their absolute right to do so.
Yeah, you were the villain in some people's stories, the
For
hero
certain.
in some people's stories,
For
the
certain.
the broken heart in somebody else's stories. Yeah.
Yes. Like cut somebody off in traffic one day when they were trying to go see their pregnant wife. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
somebody's story, but I just don't know. And when I die, you can hold on to that if it serves.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, that's where I think we have to pay attention to it. But if it's still serving you, hold on to it.
You're helping me understand that a friend of mine was dying, and they were reaching out to everybody they had known in their life to try to, they wanted to die clean. They wanted to do a low emissions emotional death.
Love. Love.
And, clean up as much as they could, and they wrote a letter to an ex, and I'm dying, a couple weeks left, and I just wanted to say thank you for the time that we spent together, and I hope you're well. And it's somebody they hadn't had contact with in years, and this person wrote them back a letter that was like, "You suck shit. You are still a horrible person. Like, you were a horrible person then. You're a horrible person now. Like, sorry you're dying, but no, like
Yeah.
whatever it is you're trying to get from me, like some sort of a forgiveness or an absolution because of your own conscience,
Yeah.
like find it somewhere else. Like, like here's the 10 most garbage things you did to me. Like you are a garbage fire person, and I don't like you any more now than I ever did. I hope you have a painless death, but like, no, I'm not interested. Whatever this thing is, this drama that you're trying to stir up here.
Yeah.
Like, so that you can feel better when you die, leave me out of it. And at the
Wow.
time I remember being like, like clutch my pearls. I was like, that's a dying person. Like, how can you, but when you wrote about that, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That's a living person talking to another living person saying, like, I don't want to be part of whatever this thing you're doing. I still don't like you. And they had the right to have that opinion.
100%. And I
They're
hope they hold
very
on to
hurt.
it for as long as it serves them. Something
Yeah, but
happened.
they don't want it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, something impacted them. Let them have it. I mean, it sucks for me, but like you can have that.
So I have like pages, 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 pages. Like I was like the book is filled with like margin. Like I've underlined so many things.
Wow.
Everybody, please get this book. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of a cliche to say that a book is important. Um, this book is important. This book is important. This subject is important. This author is important. The work. Actually, before I get to my last question, I wonder if you could speak a moment to what you do at Going with Grace in terms of training doulas and the sort of people who are attracted to doing the kind of work that you're doing. If there's anybody who's listening to this and feeling like, wait, is this my calling? Is this what I want to do? This feels like something I would love to do. I know several people in my life who have become death doulas. This feels like a movement that's happening, and you seem to be the person at the white hot center of that movement. Like you're such an influential figure in this movement that's happening. Thank God. So I wonder if you could just speak a little bit about what you've created as a teacher, not just the work that you're doing with the people who are dying.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just doing my best, trying to consistently follow whatever tickles me, whatever feels good to do. And this is a place that really still tickles. One of the things that I love more than anything is just to get to be with people that are interested in the study of death. We teach doulas. We've trained almost 3,000 now in 61 countries, which is so fun because it means that folks everywhere are like talking about preparing for death and dying, no matter their communities. And while it may not always directly translate, there's still elements of it that are appropriate no matter where you are. It's like one of my greatest joys. Like I I am constantly in the conversation about death because of these folks. Like, obviously, I'm talking to people about death when I'm, at parties or at CVS or wherever, whenever it comes up, even at concerts. One time at a concert, somebody was telling me about her husband's death. And I thought, girl, I mean, I know why you're telling me this. Why are you telling me this at this concert? But that aside, getting to train doulas is such a joy, and we get to do it in person in our retreats. We have online group studies. We have like self studies. Almost all of us will serve as a death doula at some point in our lives. We live in community, despite what the Industrial Revolution and capitalism is trying to do to us. We are still members of the community, and somebody in that community is going to die, and we get to show up for that one of the people in our community. It will happen for almost all of us. How closely or how much of the work we do really differs, but all of us will get close at some point. And these things that we teach are just the basic pillars of being in support of somebody who's dying, while also looking at our own relationship with mortality, because that has to be the foundation upon which all the rest sits. And so it's like I think it's a good time. I mean, it's a great opportunity to like look at my life and my fear and my trauma and my grief and my joy and the things that really excite me and light me up about the world. What do I fear, and see what I can learn about my life as a result of it, while also learning to support another human through the most human thing they will ever do. Like that
Mm.
to me is the baseline that we can do all the rest.
You radiate joy.
No.
And this book radiates joy. And I, speaking of paradoxes and contradictions, the fact that when you were living your life exactly the way that culture told you would make you successful and happy and meaningful and have purpose, and working as a lawyer, which is like a choke on the words of
No.
imagining you like in courtrooms and working when, like, it's so interesting to me that during that time you were dressed in black, like an undertaker, solemn and serious and heavy and depressed. And now that you work with death, like you dress in incredibly vivid, bright colors, and your hair is completely free, and your jewelry is completely free, and you radiate this incredible joy. And I find that like a beautiful. I love that transformation. That you found your life in death.
Mhm. Big time. Big time. I also, since we're here on this topic, just want to pause and thank you for your impact on my life. Eat, Pray, Love came into my life just as I was on the precipice of a major life decision, and that was to leave my first marriage. And it was because of the words that you spoke, the things that you wrote, the way that you wrote, that allowed me to say, oh, shoot, I can think, is this okay to feel this way? And it was the very first time I'd ever heard anybody say the things that I was feeling myself. And I would not have made that change if not for you. Thank you for that very, very,
Oh my God,
very important book in my life. Thank you.
thank you so much. I'm
It's true.
so touched to hear that. I do call it the book that launched a million divorces, and I am so happy that that is my legacy. I'm the divorce lady, you're the death lady, and we're like helping everybody get free.
I love. Thank you.
We had you say that that there are no coincidences, and so I'm like so touched to hear that we have that level of connection, because there's another little level of connection too that I realized today. Well, actually, I realized it while I was reading your book, and I wanted to point it out because it feels like a little bit of magic glitter, a little bit of magic glitter to me. Is that so? Your sister, Bose St. John, um, several years ago in 2020, got together with Lovey Ajayi Jones and Glennon Doyle and several other activists, and you may all remember, they created this day called Share the Mic, that where all these white women gave over their social media to all these black women to run. And it was such an exhilarating experience. And Dr. Brittany Cooper was the woman assigned to my Instagram. So I gave her my Instagram for the day. She could do whatever she wanted with it. And then we did a book conversation about her book. And it was so extraordinary to get to know her and to read her work that the thought I had was, why are we only doing this once? You know, like, why are we only doing this once? Which was the birth
Oh,
of the Onward Book Club. So in the last 5 years, so I have I turned that day into like, no, I don't ever want to stop doing this. So that's the origin of this book club. And that's what brought you and me together here, is that 5 years ago, your sister had this idea to do a share the mic day. And I was like, I'm going to keep sharing the mic. Like, I don't want to just do this once. And you are the 33rd book that we have read in this community, written by an amazing Black woman. And it is such an honor. It feels like kind of a closing of a sacred circle that this is where we ended up here today, 5 years later. So I just wanted to tell you that. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't.
that's where
How
this will be.
wonderfully round. How beautifully round.
How beautifully round, how
Yeah.
beautifully like the threads of community. Um, what a joy you are. What a brilliant light you are, and how inspiring. Thank you for finding your life's work in the work of death, and for changing the conversation about it, for mentoring so many people, for guiding so many beloved human souls to the end. I hope you continue to follow what you call the tickles, and and that you continue to inspire all of us to live better so we can die happier. And it's just a real honor to know you and to get to have this conversation. Thank you so much for coming to the Onward Book Club. Everybody, please go get yourself a copy of Briefly, Perfectly Human. Alua Arthur, you're a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for seeing me, and thank you for holding this. Yeah, thank you.
Our joy. Bye, everybody.
Bye.